He picked up the phone to fire the janitor. But when a child's voice answered, and spoke just 4 words, everything he believed about success, loyalty, and life came crashing down. Ethan Cole ran his company like a clock. Every minute accounted for, every meeting prepped down to the sip of coffee he'd take before speaking. From the 40th floor of his high-rise office, he could see the city pulse beneath him. Organized, relentless, controlled. Just like him. It was Tuesday. He'd already closed a deal worth 9 figures before lunch. Now, he sat in his glass-walled office reviewing department performance reports while his assistant, Nathan, stood awkwardly nearby. "Something wrong?" Ethan asked, barely glancing up. Nathan cleared his throat. "It's about facilities, sir. The overnight cleaner assigned to your floor hasn't shown up in 2 days. Her name's Angela Reed." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "And no one thought to tell me this yesterday? We thought she might show today, but she didn't call. No notice, it's against protocol." Ethan leaned back in his chair. His jaw tightened. "I don't pay people to disappear. Terminate her contract." Nathan hesitated. "Sir, do you want to speak with her first? HR, usually?" "I don't need to speak to someone who can't follow basic rules," Ethan snapped. But something tugged at the edge of his mind. 2 days, no word. That was unusual. He sighed and reached for the file Nathan was holding out. Inside was a simple sheet. Angela Reed, cleaner. Employed for 3 years. 0 incidents, 0 complaints. He paused. "Give me your contact number," Ethan said, almost surprising himself. "I'll make the call." Nathan blinked. "You do want to call her directly?" "I want to hear the excuse from her voice," Ethan muttered. "Then I'll fire her." Nathan scribbled the number on a sticky note and left. Ethan stared at the digits for a second longer than necessary. He tapped the number into his phone and leaned back, rehearsing a firm, professional tone. 3 rings. 4. Then the call connected, and it wasn't a woman who answered. It was a small, quiet voice, a child. "Hello?" the voice whispered. Ethan blinked. The words he'd prepared vanished. Is Angela Reed there?" he asked. A pause. Then the child replied softly, "Mommy can't talk right now. She's real sick." Ethan sat up straight. Something in that voice, so fragile, so carefully spoken, clenched something in his chest he didn't know was there. Who is this?" "I'm Zoe," the girl said. "I'm 7. Are you Mommy's boss?" Ethan froze. The air felt heavier. "She tried to go to work," Zoe added, almost whispering now. "But she couldn't walk today." He didn't know what to say. He'd built empires, fired hundreds, but in that moment all he could think was... He wasn't talking to a cleaner. He was talking to a daughter trying to protect her mother. Ethan sat frozen, phone pressed to his ear, staring blankly at the windows that used to make him feel invincible. The city buzzed far below, but his world had gone still. The little voice on the line, Zoe, sounded impossibly brave, impossibly alone. "Is she going to get in trouble?" Zoe asked softly. Ethan swallowed, caught off guard by the question. "What?" "My mommy," she whispered. "She said she was scared her boss would be mad because she missed work." He couldn't speak. The words caught in his throat. He had expected excuses, silence, maybe even defiance. But not this. Not a child. Answering a call meant to end someone's job. There was a rustling sound, then Zoe said, "I've been making her tea. And I cleaned the kitchen. I can try to come clean the office if you need someone. I'm small, but I'm fast." Ethan closed his eyes. The image hit him hard. A child stepping in where her mother had fallen, trying to help, trying to protect. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, phone pressed tightly now. "No, sweetheart," he said gently, his voice softer than he'd used in years. "You don't have to do that." "But we need money," Zoe replied. 4 words. 4 words that echoed through his mind like a siren cutting through glass and steel. "We need the money." Ethan wasn't a stranger to struggle. Not entirely. His own childhood hadn't been easy, but he had buried that past under 10,000 suits, board meetings, and stock options. He had told himself that people who didn't show up didn't care enough. Now, sitting in his towering office with its pristine leather furniture and silence that used to feel like power, he realized he'd been wrong. "Zoe," he said quietly, What's wrong with your mom? Why can't she walk? I don't know, Zoe said, sniffling. She got dizzy and fell in the bathroom last night. She's still sleeping. I made her soup. She drank a little. No emergency contact, no hospital, just a child trying. His throat tightened. For a long moment, he didn't say anything. Then he did something he hadn't done in a very long time. He made a decision that had nothing to do with performance charts or profit margins. Zoe, he said gently, I need your address. I'm coming to check on your mom. Is that okay? There was silence. Then, in the smallest voice, she asked, Are you going to yell? No, he said firmly. I'm not going to yell. Okay, she whispered. I'll wait by the door. Ethan didn't tell anyone where he was going. He didn't text his assistant, didn't call security, didn't take the town car. He just grabbed his coat and keys, got in his own vehicle, and drove. It had been a long time since Ethan Cole had driven himself anywhere. The address Zoe gave him led to a rundown apartment complex on the edge of the city. A part he hadn't seen in years, not since before his first investment firm, before the glass office, before the distance he'd carefully built between himself and everything that looked like struggle. He parked beneath a flickering streetlight, staring up at the aging brick facade of the building. A few windows glowed with the soft yellow of weak lamps. One of them had a hand-drawn heart taped to the inside. The hallway smelled like mildew and burnt toast. He passed chipped paint and faded door numbers until he reached 2B. He hesitated. Then he knocked. A few seconds later, the door creaked open. Zoe peeked out from behind it. She was small, barely came up to his waist. Her curls framed a pale, serious face, and her oversized sweatshirt looked like it had once belonged to an adult. But her eyes, they were wide with the kind of quiet hope that hurt to look at. You came, she said, like she wasn't sure people ever really did. I did, Ethan replied. She opened the door wider and stepped aside. He ducked into the apartment. It was small and dimly lit, clean despite the visible signs of wear. A kettle sat on the stove, still warm. A blanket lay on the couch, folded with the care of someone who tried to make order out of chaos. In the corner, on a thin mattress, lay Angela Reed. Her face was pale, her breathing shallow. One hand clutched her stomach as though holding pain in place. A trash can nearby was half filled with tissues. She looked like she'd been ill for days. Ethan's chest tightened. She didn't look like someone skipping work. She looked like someone surviving. Zoe knelt beside her and gently shook her shoulder. Mommy, he's here. Angela stirred, her eyelids fluttering open. She saw Ethan standing awkwardly in her living room and tried to sit up. I'm sorry, Mr. Cole, she whispered, voice dry and cracking. I didn't mean to miss... Don't, he said quickly, stepping forward. Don't apologize. She blinked at him, surprised. She tried again, her voice breaking. I didn't want to lose this job. It's the only steady thing we have. Ethan didn't know what to say. Not yet, but for the first time in his life, he knew he wasn't here to talk. He was here to understand. Ethan pulled out the only kitchen chair and brought it to Angela's bedside. It creaked beneath his weight, unfamiliar with suits and expensive shoes. Angela watched him, confused, her hand still resting on her stomach. You should lie back, Ethan said gently. You don't have to explain anything right now. Angela blinked, too weak to argue. She nodded faintly and rested her head back on the flattened pillow. Zoe stood beside her mother, one hand on the blanket, watching Ethan like a cat that wasn't sure if it should trust the hand reaching out. He turned to her. Have you eaten today, Zoe? She hesitated. I had cereal this morning, but we're almost out of milk. Ethan stood. Is it okay if I check your kitchen? Zoe glanced at her mom, then gave a small nod. He stepped into the kitchenette, if it could even be called that. There was a fridge, a single burner, and a cabinet missing a handle. Inside, he found a few cans, dry rice, and an empty jug of milk. He felt something twist in his chest again. He'd thrown away catered meals that cost more than everything in this apartment. When he returned, Zoe was sitting cross-legged by her mom's side, reading softly from a children's book. Her voice trembled, but she kept going. Angela's eyes had fluttered shut again, her breathing shallow but even. She always reads to me, Zoe said, noticing him. So I read to her now. Ethan sat back down and studied the little girl's face. How long has she been like this? He asked. Zoe didn't answer right away. She picked at the fraying edge of her sleeve. Since Friday night? She said it was just the flu, but then she couldn't stand yesterday. And you've been taking care of her all by yourself? Zoe nodded slowly. She didn't want to go to the hospital. She said we can't afford it unless it's really bad. Ethan inhaled, pressing his fingers together tightly. He was a man used to spreadsheets and budgets, cost-benefit ratios, risk assessments. But nothing in his life had prepared him for the sound of a child deciding whether her mom was sick enough to deserve help. I'm calling a doctor, he said quietly. Zoe's eyes widened. We can't. You don't need to pay, he cut in. I'll take care of it. Zoe blinked, unsure if she'd heard right. Ethan looked down, feeling the full weight of his own privilege, his own distance. You've done enough, he said gently. Let me do something now. The doctor arrived within the hour. Ethan had called in a favor, one of the city's best house call physicians, someone used to treating politicians and tech millionaires in their private residences. But today she came to a cramped apartment with peeling walls and a child who opened the door, clutching a stuffed rabbit. Zoe watched closely as the doctor unpacked her bag, her eyes darting between the stranger and her mother, like she was ready to defend her with all the small strength she had. Ethan knelt beside her and whispered, It's okay, she's here to help. The doctor examined Angela gently, asking questions in a low, calm voice. Angela winced as her abdomen was pressed, and the doctor's expression changed subtly, concern flickering just beneath the surface. After nearly 30 minutes, the doctor stood and took Ethan aside. She's badly dehydrated and possibly suffering from a severe infection. She needs fluids and antibiotics right away. Ethan's jaw tightened. Should she be hospitalized? Under normal circumstances, yes, but she's terrified of medical bills. She's been delaying care. If she continues like this, she could slip into something much worse. Ethan nodded. Do whatever she needs, bill me. The doctor placed a hand on his shoulder. You just might have saved her life by showing up today. Those words sat heavily on him, because they weren't just about Angela. They were about every employee he'd never known, every life buried beneath a name on a payroll report. After the doctor left, with prescriptions filled and IV fluid set up, Ethan stayed. Angela was resting now, her face no longer as pinched with pain. Zoe had fallen asleep, curled up at the foot of the mattress like a loyal puppy. Ethan sat silently in the kitchen, his suit jacket folded over the back of the chair. He ran his fingers along the scratched table. He wasn't used to silence that wasn't strategic. This silence felt honest, grounded. After a while, Angela stirred. She opened her eyes and saw him still there. You didn't have to come, she whispered. I did, he replied. She studied his face for a long time. Why? He searched for the words. Because your daughter's voice stopped me in my tracks, and because no one should have to choose between getting help and keeping a job. Angela's eyes filled, but she didn't look away. You're not like I imagined, she said softly. He gave a small smile. Neither am I. Ethan didn't return to the office that day. He didn't return the next day either. Instead, he kept coming back to apartment 2B. He brought groceries the following morning. Fruits, soup, juice, fresh bread, even cookies with colorful icing that made Zoe beam. Angela tried to sit up and protest when she saw the bags. You don't need to do all this, she said, her voice stronger now. I know, Ethan replied, unpacking the items anyway. But I want to. Angela watched him carefully, unsure of what to make of this man who'd come to fire her and stayed to save her life. By Thursday, Angela could walk a few steps. By Saturday, she smiled when she saw Ethan arrive, like she'd started to expect him. Zoe was always waiting at the door now, often with a question, a drawing, or a story she'd written just for him. He stopped wearing suits on his visits, swapped dress shoes for sneakers. He laughed more, listened more, even helped Zoe with her spelling homework one afternoon while Angela rested. For the first time in years, he felt human. He felt needed. That weekend, as he was folding an extra blanket Zoe had dragged out for Pillow Mountain time, Angela sat on the couch and looked at him. You changed, she said quietly. He paused. How so? You used to be the kind of boss people feared. I never thought you'd care if I disappeared. Ethan took a long breath. Neither did I. She tilted her head. Why us? Why now? He looked over at Zoe, who was humming softly to herself while coloring. Because that little girl picked up the phone and reminded me I still have a heart. Angela smiled, her eyes softening. You do, and it's a good one. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was warm, full. Ethan stood and rubbed the back of his neck. I don't want this to be temporary, he said, eyes shifting from Angela to Zoe. I want to keep being part of your lives, if you'll let me. Angela stared at him. Are you sure? He nodded slowly. For the first time in my life, I am. Just then, Zoe looked up. Does that mean you're like our family now? Ethan knelt down beside her. If you'll have me. Zoe grinned and threw her arms around his neck. Angela wiped her eyes, but this time she didn't try to hide the tears. That night, after saying goodnight to Zoe and Angela, Ethan didn't return to his penthouse right away. He parked nearby and sat in his car for a long while, watching the lights of apartment 2B glow softly behind a worn curtain. He thought of all the deals he'd closed, the boardrooms where he'd spoken with power, the towers he'd built, and how none of them had made him feel what he felt now. Seen, connected, whole, he no longer cared about the labels that had once defined him: CEO, millionaire, perfectionist. Tonight he was just a man who showed up and found something real waiting on the other side of that door. Family, love, purpose. As the stars blinked into the quiet sky above the city, Ethan made a silent vow, not just to return, but to stay. To be there for birthdays, for doctor's visits, for hard days and good ones. To help with Zoe's homework, to fix leaky faucets, to laugh, to grieve, to live, not from a tower, but among the people who reminded him of what mattered. This wasn't the end of a story. It was the beginning of a life he never knew he needed. A life where showing up made all the difference. The end. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and share. And subscribe for more powerful stories just like this.